Hey there everybody, how's it going? Welcome to my review of Beat Souls for Nintendo Switch. Now, as is tradition, I like to do a little TLDR version of the review. If you don't want to waste your time watching the entire video, you can just take this little bite-sized summary so that you can just know what you want to know about the game. Is it good? Is it not? And I'll just tell you straight out, and there you go. You can just go on your way. Now, is the game good? I would say so, yeah, it's pretty fun. It's kind of in the middle, right? It's not fantastic and amazing. The game is actually kind of bare bones in many ways. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the game is bad or terrible, right? What it does have, it's good and has a lot of potential, but it just doesn't tap into that potential at all, right? The game is essentially Muse Dash and Everhood just fused together, right? Those two games had a baby, and that baby is very much still a baby, right? Still baby steps, not really growing into a greater game. However, the game is pretty cheap. There is a Steam version of the game out there that's like $12, and so far it has gotten a bunch of updates where they seemingly have added new songs, and they're adding, newer features and with all of these updates. And there's a lot of people that do like the game, and so yeah, if this appeals to you, if you just want a different rhythm game in the style of Everhood where you're kind of just dodging platforms instead of actually hitting notes, then this is definitely a more unique rhythm game experience, even if it is kind of an offshoot from all of these other more popular games. And there we go, that's the summary. The game is pretty okay. If you like rhythm games, you'll probably like this okay. It's only $12 on Steam, and I'm assuming it's gonna cost around the same on all the other platforms, including Switch, so it's pretty cheap. And so if you end up like not really jiving super well with that game, then at least you know you're not losing out on a whole lot. But I feel like the content that is there is pretty enjoyable. It just needs to kind of level up a bit, you know what I mean? And there we go, you can just take all of that information in whatever way that you want, and you can decide whether you want to buy the game, yes or no, entirely on your own. And the full review is coming up right now. I really don't have a whole lot to say because, as I said, the game is super bare bones. It really doesn't have a whole lot, going on other than like a song list, and then those songs by themselves are pretty short. But yeah, it's a rhythm game in the style visually of Muse Dash, and then in the style mechanically of Everhood, right? If you guys have played Everhood, then you'll know that it's almost like a vertical Guitar Hero kind of track where you see the notes coming at you, but you don't hit the notes like in Guitar Hero, but rather you're dodging them, right? You're like a little character on all of these tracks, and so you gotta jump and roll around and move. But here they do add a couple more things that make the game a little bit more unique than just, Everhood, copy paste, and that's it, right? No, you have your character that is supposed to be avoiding all the platforms, but then you have like these little orbs on the side of your character on the left and right. You can move them around through the tracks and stuff, but those balls are supposed to be the receptacles for like music notes, right? There's the yellow ball is supposed to hit the other yellow balls, and that's how you essentially rack up points, right? And your little character in the center is like your heart, right, or your life. It's not supposed to get hit by things, but the little yellow balls, they definitely can, they don't jump along with you or anything. They stay firmly planted on the tracks, and you can move them around wherever, so you can get all of the little, I guess, music notes, right? But they add another mechanic like being able to switch colors, right? There's yellow and blue, and so you hit a button and it automatically goes blue, and so whenever you see the blue music notes coming in the heat of the moment with all the music and stuff, it adds a bigger challenge by having to immediately go back and forth from yellow to blue and yellow to blue. The difficulty curve is actually pretty nice. They don't overwhelm you too much. It doesn't get hard too quickly, right? All of the different songs are divided by different characters that you're challenging, right? So there's 4 characters in total, your protagonist character, and 3 other characters that you're like challenging, I guess, and they all have 15 different songs. And so when you start with this character, level 1, it's a super duper easy track, and then you start going to slightly harder and harder and harder songs, where by the time you reach song number 14 and 15, which are like the last 2 for each character, they do get fairly difficult. I did find myself having to retry a couple of times, but only a couple of times. It's not impossible, but you really do have to pay a lot of attention to what's going on because, as I said, the game is very visually kind of noisy, very Muse Dash-ish, where it's all super cyberpunk, not cyberpunk, cyberpop, actually. Very neon, very colorful, very bubblegum pop, like artsy music kind of stuff, right? Like every single future funk playlist you've ever seen on YouTube, that's what this, game looks like. A lot of pink, a lot of purple, a lot of neon. And so a lot of it can kind of blend together in a way that doesn't benefit the game, right? Especially the little platforms on the floor that you have to jump over, right? It's just these subtle little lines where like the entire atmosphere is like red, right? And then the lines are red too, and so you end up like kind of losing track of where everything is, and you don't know like what's a jumping platform and what's just some crazy thing happening in the background, right? And so yeah, it's very difficult for you to kind of lose your way and kind of get hit a bunch of times and eventually lose the song because there's no clarity between background and foreground and what's a part of the song and what's not a part of the song, you know, what's a little jumpy platform, right? There's a set of levels that are totally blue, right? Because there's so much blue on the screen, you can barely see the little blue line coming towards you that you're supposed to jump out of, right? So yeah, sometimes visually it can get a little messy, but it is a very pleasing to the eye kind of experience, even though mechanically it could be a little detrimental. But yeah, the difficulty curve is pretty consistent. They teach you things very, very slowly, but you kind of start to get a feel and kind of get a flow for the songs, and it does start to click after a while. I just wish there were just more songs and a wider variety of stuff, right? The soundtrack is made mostly by just one artist. I think there's only like 1 or 2 songs that have another different artist involved, right? But everything kind of sounds sort of samey, right? Even though they do delve with different genres, there are different characters involved, as I mentioned. You know, there's one character that's supposed to be like this like ghostly sort of yokai skeleton girl, and so she has like these really almost PlayStation 2 style like techno, almost EDM kind of songs, right? And so those are all 15 songs. And they all blend, if you play them all, like just all 15 songs in a row, they blend together fairly nice, right? But then if you look at them individually, they all kind of sound like the same song, right? The songs end very abruptly, and you can very quickly go to the next song, and it sounds like they just continued off of what they had before, right? So every single individual song doesn't necessarily have an identity of its own, but they do kind of blossom when you kind of just play them all in one go in a playlist, right? Because they all kind of build off of each other. The second character is more like a very energetic girl kind of yokai, right? Where it's like, oh, you know, she loves exercising and training and all that stuff. She's almost like a cat girl or whatever. And strangely enough, all of her songs are ironically very chill, right? It's almost like jazzy, almost like bossa nova house kind of music. And so I do like the change, right? Because everything could just be techno, EDM, dubstep, right? But no, they totally went the other direction, and that was actually like my favorite chunk of the game, right? That's the music that kind of resonated with me the most. And those were also the most enjoyable levels to play through, right? Those are the ones where I really got my flow going. And then you have the third section, the last one, which is this other almost like hard rock, you know, punk kind of girl, and of course there's a lot of electric guitars and stuff like that playing around. No songs with vocals, not really. But it also gets kind of weird when you see like the characters and then the music that is supposed to represent them, right? Because you have the skeleton girl that is very mellow or whatever, and so you have these EDM songs, and then the super energetic girl with really mellow jazzy tracks, and then you have the super hard rock and roll girl. But then when you read her bio, like her character information says, oh, she secretly really likes cute things and she wants to wear frilly dresses, but I don't know, she thinks it wouldn't suit her. And I feel like that would have been cool to reflect that in the music, right? Where like, you know, the outward appearance is very hardcore and rock, but low-key she kind of likes girly cute stuff. So, you know, having some music that's more reminiscent of, say, like baby metal or something like that, or like cutesy rock, or, you know, something that's more like a poppy kind of vibe, but have the electric guitar still. I think looking at the characters would have been a really good inspiration to make more unique music that kind of fits the character, because then you have this dissonance of like this really sporty, tomboyish kind of character, and, you know, all of her songs are like really like slow, like saxophone kind of music, right? And so it's like a Kenny G should be in there, not necessarily like this sporty anime cat girl, right? If anything, all of those hard rock songs should be with that girl, and, you know, all of the cutesy songs should be with the rock and roll girl, because that's secretly what she likes, right? So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of missed opportunities when it comes to really blending the characters and the bios with the music that you're actually playing. And so there's 45 tracks in total. There's 15 songs for each character, and there's only 3 characters. There's a 4th one, which is your protagonist character, but she doesn't have any set of songs for herself, which is a bit of a problem because all of the songs are really, really short, and they all feel kind of samey. It feels like one long DJ track just kind of split into like 15 different pieces for each one. And there are even songs that repeat, right? That's kind of like the worst part, is that considering how short, I mean, 45 tracks sounds like a lot, but as I said, my final video file of all of the footage for this entire game was only an hour and a half, right? So it just goes to show how quickly you can get through it and how much there really isn't there, right? That's not even including like the endless hell mode, right? Where after a certain point, you can unlock an endless trial where you can just go through one song that just keeps going infinitely, and obviously the tracks keep getting harder and harder and harder, and so you keep playing until you die, and you get your special score and your rank against other people, right? That's the idea, but I just didn't really have a lot of fun playing that, because it was just one of the songs that I knew from the set list, and it just kept going and going until you die, and that's sort of it, right? If you like high scores and all that stuff, you can do that. That wasn't really for me. And for the Endless Hell, there were only 3 songs, right? But just one for each character, and so it's kind of another missed opportunity if they just had more songs to put on the Endless Trial or whatever. Why couldn't it just have been all of the songs, right? And just loop them infinitely? I don't know. And speaking of difficulty levels, there is normal and hard. Those are pretty much the 2. And I don't know if you want to add like the Endless Hell, the Infinite Survival Mode as another difficulty level. I don't know. But yeah, the game is generally pretty easy. It's not until like the last 2 or 3 songs in every character's set list that it does start to get super duper tricky, right? It's very normal for rhythm games to kind of add more mechanics and add more noise and stuff on the screen to kind of distract you, to get you to screw up and stuff. But as I said before, with like the floor, you know, blending too much with the atmosphere, some of it feels a little bit cheap. But the vast majority of the times, every single time that I lost or that I made a mistake, that was definitely on me, right? And you just have to learn the mechanics and just develop those reflexes to switch the little ball colors whenever you need to, and then shifting the balls to different lanes and jumping. Like, you're gonna be juggling like 2 or 3 different mechanics all at once, right? On top of trying to dodge all of the, you know, different platforms coming at you and stuff. But as soon as you factor in the music and getting into the rhythm of it, you do kind of get into this flow state where it does feel really good when you pull it off perfectly, right? And this is just a normal mode. On harder mode, it does definitely get a lot more challenging. But that's kind of it. That's sort of just the arcade mode. It's just the set list with all the songs, and it flies by super fast, and the endless mode also flies by really fast, and I go to the game and I see the other options, and there really isn't anything else there, right? It's just the 4 characters. You have a list of achievements, and by the time I just naturally played through all of the 45 songs once in around 90 minutes, pretty much like 80% of my achievements were already completed. Almost 100% done with all of the achievements. Anything that I hadn't done was just milestone stuff, right? Reach a certain level, play through all of the songs on hard, right? Use all of the characters at least once. Is just like, you know, exhaust every single little thing that you can do in the game, which isn't a whole lot, right? Like, literally the other half of my achievements that I had left were just play through the whole game again, but just play it on hard, right? It was like an NES game, right? So yeah, that's kind of the big problem with the game. You know, for as much as I did have fun playing it, I couldn't help but feel, man, like Everhood is like more unique and it's better because it has the story element and a better, more consistent art style. But there's just not enough to do here. I don't think there's enough songs. I feel like the musical variety is not really there. It's essentially just 3 genres of music where 15 songs of every genre just feels like it's the same song split into different pieces. There's really no point in having the characters. I mean, the characters do have special abilities, right? Like, there's one where like, oh, if you make 15 mistakes, the game forgives you and they don't count, right? Or like, oh, you know, if your combo counter is less than a certain amount, then you're not gonna get hurt, or stuff like that, right? Like, the protagonist character has like way more health than anyone else in the game. I can understand that in terms of abilities and benefits and stuff, but they have like all of these character bios, and there's this implication of a story involved, and I don't really see the point because there's no story mode, there's no dialogue between the characters, at least not here in the Switch version. I know that on the PC version on Steam, they do add a little bit more dialogue between the characters, but again, it doesn't really grow into anything bigger, right? It's just kind of aesthetic characters for the sake of aesthetic. It's supposed to be cyberpop, Muse dashy kind of thing, right? So you gotta have these colorful anime characters in there. And so that can appeal to people, but ultimately it doesn't really do much to kind of enhance the experience. The options are super bare bones as well, right? In typical, almost mobile game fashion, right? Okay, volume levels, you know, up or down, turn it on or off. And then for the visual effects as well is really disappointing. It's just, oh, yeah, this visual effect, off or on, and that's it, right? There's no in-between. Either turn everything off or turn everything on. And I would have liked it if it was more specific, right? If there's more things that you could do, like, hey, you know, make the little line that you have to jump over, make it brighter, right? Or just get rid of all of this, you know, noise that really has nothing to do with the rhythm game mechanics. It's just like window dressing. Maybe I can get rid of that, or maybe blur it, or, you know, darken it a little bit so that, you know, it's not as distracting. Stuff like that. And so, yeah, the fact that it's just on or off, maybe like the 2 or 3 things that you see on screen, I feel like it doesn't really do enough. Another small gripe that I have is the English translation. It just feels really stiff and awkward. It doesn't feel like a professional level translation. To me, it feels like a fan translation, right? It's a little too simple, and it has a lot of really awkward way of phrasing things. The font is a little difficult to read as well, because the letter T and the letter F both look exactly the same. It's very difficult to tell when, you know, you see a word with a letter F. I'm like, is that a typo? Did they accidentally put the letter T in there? Well, no, it's supposed to be F, but it just has like a tiny little thing at the top to kind of indicate that it's the letter F. So yeah, the font and the way that the text is really awkwardly written just makes this a really, like, yeah, just a really strange experience. And that's pretty much everything I have to say about the game, right? It's Everhood fused with Muse Dash, and the rhythm game part is fun. I did enjoy myself, I just don't feel like there's enough there. And even outside of the rhythm game mechanics, there's nothing in its periphery, right? There's nothing surrounding it that also makes it interesting, right? There's no story or any real dialogue with the characters. There really aren't any other modes other than just the arcade mode to just play the songs, or just do an endless trial of some of the songs, and that's kind of it. There really isn't anything else. There's no, like, co-op mode, or hey, compete with someone else online, other than, like, the rankings and stuff. It's just really empty. It feels almost like a beta or a demo or like a proof of concept for something bigger, right? I do know that this game is on Steam for $12, so that is a positive, right? It's a very cheap game. If this game was like $40, I'd say no, screw it, right? But it's just a little bit over $10. And so if you're curious at all about what this game is, or if this game speaks to you in some way, then I think you should check it out, right? At least to try it out for the 90 minutes that it took me to record the entire game. And it just might be something that you love, right? Especially with the sign here that it looks like this game is getting consistent updates, and they are adding new songs for free, and they might even add new characters and stuff like that, right? So there is the promise of newer content coming up down the line. Maybe this is just like the starting off point where, you know, we still haven't seen a whole lot of what they have to give. But I'm not a fortune teller, and I can't tell what the future holds for this game, right? Or even if they're going to, like, you know, really consistently update this game in the way that I assume, right? The version of the game that I have now is what I'm evaluating. Right now, it's sorely lacking, but what is there is pretty enjoyable. The game is very simple to run. I played it on Nintendo Switch, and it ran at a smooth 60 frames per second. I didn't have any problems. No chugging, no frame rate issues. None of that. Everything was running pretty perfectly. And I can only assume that on PS4 and PC and everywhere else. If it runs well on Switch, it'll run well everywhere else, let me tell you. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that I have to say. I don't really give scores, so if you guys are waiting for me to, like, bookend this review with a score, you're wasting your time. I don't really like scoring games. But it's just a teensy tiny bit above average, right? If I really had to give a score, it'd be like a 6 or a 7, you know? I feel like if you come back to this game in like 2 years, right? If you wait for like updates to come out, or like they just add more stuff, then you can definitely bump this to an 8. But as it stands, it's like around a 6 or a 7, around there, you know? It's just a little, it just barely makes it to be above average, right? Just barely good enough to be worth checking out, right? And I think the low price tag is definitely a big part of it. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Beat Souls. Thank you very much to East Asia Soft for offering me the review copy on Nintendo Switch. And if you guys obviously enjoyed this review, if you want to see more, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time for some more reviews, some more commentary, some more fun. Alright? Thanks. See you later. Bye-bye.